All right, let's do this. Okay, so I am deciding to do my coming out story. And I'm trying not to fidget and be nervous because I've never really like sat down and done this before. And I've seen tons of people's videos, but I think that in order to really try to become more of a whole person, I think you have to accept a lot of your past. Things that could happen, things that did happen, and things that you just can't forget. So, yeah. So, let's start from the beginning. So, I grew up and life was pretty normal for my bubble, my circle, I guess. Um, I was the only child of my parents together. Only child. I have other siblings from other marriages, but as far as me, I'm the only child. And life was always like the Anthony show. As far as me and my mom were concerned, it was always the Anthony show. It was like he is just like number one. And I grew up in like a very Christian, um, Baptist, Pentecostal upbringing. We went to church. I mean, all day Sunday, Bible studies, conventions, choir rehearsal on Friday, take all day Saturday to get ready for Sunday. And, it was just that. It was a thing. Um, Probably my earliest memory, um, there were some things that happened to me as a kid that really, really, really shouldn't have happened. And for the longest time, I never told anyone. And it was all family. I never really had a lot of experiences with people outside of family besides from church, because all we knew was church and family, and that's it. That nothing about the outside world really made sense to me. It was just kind of like, it just wasn't a thing. Almost to the extent of like that of a Mormon or like Amish people. Even though I lived in the city of Northwest Indiana in Chicago, it was like we were our own little just nucleus of people. And so I grew up always singing and stuff like that. And I remember even from some of my earliest memories, I've always had like a very high voice. And even now, sometimes when I get sick, my voice gets kind of low. I'm like, ooh, this is a thing. But even from my earliest memories, I would always hear people tell me, like something's something's different with him, or like he's not all boy or whatever the case may be. And I would just never say anything. I never had a comeback. I never said anything really. I mean, even though I would smile a lot, I never said anything. Even with child abuse and things like that from various family members, I just never said anything. And for the longest time, I kind of blamed myself, like it was my fault. There was something about me that I wanted, that people wanted to hurt me or do something to me. And so fast forward, I got into middle school, and this guy sent me this note, and he was like, "Hey, I think you're really cute, and da 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 da, and I want to talk to you, after class or whatever." And we were in the same grade, and I remember thinking like, "Well, this is weird," because I never had the birds and the bees talk. I mean, at church, that really wasn't a thing. It was just kind of like, I don't know. I guess everybody just figured I would figure it out one day on my own. And so that was like my first real relationship. And it was something that I always wanted. I mean, girls were just always like my friends, or they're just kind of like, I don't know. It was just kind of like, it was just something I never saw. I was never like, oh, she's pretty. Like, I want to kiss her or talk to her or anything like that. But like with guys, I would be like, whoa, like he looked at me or like, So when he sent me the note or whatever, I responded back, and so that was like my first like crush or whatever relationship. I mean, I don't know how much of a relationship you can have in the 7th grade. That's not really like a thing. But I initially came out. I was in choir because I used to sing, and we were at a competition. We used to go to a lot of competitions, and my mom and dad would always support my singing because, not to toot my own horn, but like I'm pretty good, but whatever. And so we had the one event, and this little guy, his name, I'll never forget his name. His name was Ryan. Ryan sang this beautiful song, and at the time, Ryan was like a grade behind me. And he sang this song, and he sounded like a soprano, but he had a gorgeous, gorgeous voice. And I remember my family joking about it as we were leaving and when we got home. And they just kept talking about it. And something inside of me just really, really, really just wasn't okay with it. And so I said, well, they were like, well, he's going to be a sissy and he's not going to have a good life and all this other kind of stuff. And so I just finally said, well, what if we had somebody in our family like that? And they said we did. And at the time, my uncle, who's no longer with us, was gay. And so they were like, yeah, him. And I was like, well, no. I was like, not him. I was like, what if it were me? And they were like, oh, get out of here. Like, what are you talking about? Da, 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 da. And I was like, no. I was like, I'm serious. I was like, I think that, I'm attracted to guys. It's a thing. And they were like, well, you don't know about love. You don't know if somebody likes you or whatever. You're a kid. Not really a kid in the 7th grade. That's not a thing. But, so that was the first time I came out. And so after much disgruntled family meetings and controversies, all that coming out for them to push me back into the closet. When I would go to school, I was one person. I was fabulous. I was Anthony. I was like, girl, yes, honey. But when I got home and when we were in church and things like that, it had to be very, even like when we would go to church or like I used to sing in a group, and like when we would go places or whatever, if like guys would check me out, because I've always been the same person that I am now. Like, say for instance, if we were at a concert or something and somebody looked at me, like my mom would like forcibly like look at that person and be like, not my son. Whole situation. So anyway, so that pushed me like back into the closet. Well, in high school, then I started like rebelling and stuff like that. And it really caused me to not value myself. It just turned into like a spiral. I mean, I was vulgar. I was very rebellious against my parents. And there were a few times where I got into a lot of trouble. But it was just because I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to be heard. And not heard out of what they had heard from society. I wanted to be heard for who I am as an individual. And so, yeah, I just started living for the moment. And when I graduated high school in 2010, I went to college all the way in North Carolina, and I was like, look, honey, I'm going to live my life, okay? So I went to this HBCU, which means Historically Black College and or University, and it was great. I was a hot mess. I was around so many people from so many different places that did so many different things. I mean, you had people from Philadelphia, from New York City, from Florida, from Miami, from uh, Kansas City, from California. I mean, all this other kind of stuff. And so I joined the fraternity. I was a cheerleader for the first time. Hashtag body positivity, because I thought for the longest time I was a big boy, and that was my family's effort to keep me like, hey, you can't be gay because you're big. So, which was never the case because I was never really big. I've always just been kind of just like thick. I've been a thickums. And so, yeah. But then I think with anything, you have to have love. You have to have a supportive love around you. And as I was starting to face like a really, really hard time in college, I needed that support system, and my family wouldn't give it to me unless I got back right with the Lord. And so, in an effort to have their support, I reneged and I went back into the closet and tried to make everybody happy. While all the while dying to myself. Like I was just like, I was killing myself by not being truthful to myself, and got into some really bad relationships. I got married. That was a hotmess.com. And so, yeah. However, now things are so much better. I am totally 1000% comfortable in my own skin. And really the reason why I wanted to do this video was because I just wanted to let somebody know, like, I don't care if one person watches my video or 1,000 people watch my video, like, it's okay to be yourself, because eventually it'll make sense. It'll make sense. I had a professor in college one time. He asked me, right when I was going through like a lot of mess, he was like, if your 5-year-old self could sit at the table with who you are currently, how proud would you be? And honestly, if I could sit across from my 5-year-old self right now, my 5-year-old self would be gleaming from ear to ear, because I am so positive. I have such a good heart. I really, really do love all people. I try and find the good in everybody. I'm in a wonderful relationship now with a guy who just really, really just adores me and loves on me, even though he knows that I'm a hot mess and I still am a work in progress. But it's okay. It is okay. If people don't like it, that's their loss. It is not your problem. That is their loss, and it's all good. So, yeah, that's who I am. A little bit of who I am. And of course, we'll have more in-depth videos. Curtis is gonna do one video. He's gonna do his coming out story. But yeah, I just wanted to encourage somebody, and it's always good. So remember, stay positive, stay grounded, and keep liking our videos and keep loving on us. We love you guys back. Mwah.